would you mind just starting off by sharing your name, the school you support, and more about your role?
Sure. My name's Camp. I am the head of teaching and learning at New England Innovation Academy, which is essentially a startup school, independent school. We're kicking off our third year in just a couple weeks.
Wow, congratulations,
Thanks.
3 years.
Very exciting.
Lots of new systems in place, I'm sure.
Yep.
Can you tell us more just about how Otus came into the conversation for New England Innovation Academy?
Yep. So we have a very unique competency-based system for assessment.
Okay.
And our system is really, I call it a mashup. It's competency, standards, mastery, traditional, all mashed into what we believe is the best system. And it was very difficult to find a LMS in Gradebook to support how we do things, and Otus filled every need we had for that. So that was a long journey looking through like many programs, and Otus is by far the best. And for what we needed to do, which is complicated, it does all those things. It's amazing, actually.
Well, we love to hear that.
Yeah.
Is New England Innovation Academy K-8, or what grade levels are we?
6 through 12.
6 through 12. Okay, so are all 6th through 12th grade students being assessed using Otus then?
They were last year. Now
Okay.
they're all of our competencies or standards in Otus. Everything gets funneled into Otus, so that we can track their competencies in a subject area across the whole school that way. So we use it as like primarily like because our competency-based system is super important to us, as we consider it like a distinction of how we do things. Otus is our prime showcase for that, for families and for students and for teachers.
Okay, so you do have students and families logging in to see all of their progress on those competencies.
Yeah. Yep.
Are you finding that giving them that level of visibility impacts how they see themselves as learners at all, or?
Yeah, definitely. And we have to even do better with using the cool tools in Otus in terms of the graphs and how we can use the data compilation systems to help student learning and help students understand their progress. So it's really, we haven't even really fully tapped into all the great things that Otus can do, but because I just talk about like with the individual students or even families, like, oh, we can look at your iConnect competency, and like I can click on it and pull up a graph. And my favorite things about the graphs are that you can see the progress on our standards, on our measures for the competencies, but that you can click on any one to see where that point is, and it tells you what assessment that was. Like, that's an amazing data point to talk to a family or a student about, like, oh, look how you're doing really well, and you went down a little bit on this assessment. What was it about that assessment and how you approached it, how you took it, all those types of things, how we taught it that could be better, all those things.
Wow, so it sounds like you're definitely engaging in a lot of dialogue around all of that data. That's fantastic to hear. You're kind of unlocking things that maybe were a bit more confusing.
Well, that's the whole goal of our system, actually, is to have it so that I always say the way I talk about our assessment system is it's not a single data point. In a traditional system, you get a quiz back and it has 75 on it. It doesn't tell you anything about what you learned or what your learning process is. And our system does that. But we need a system like Otus to be able to present that and for students to process and understand it. So it's really like using that data to inform better student learning. Absolutely.
And I imagine that ties into a bit with some of the equity practices you all are employing at New England Innovation as well. Would that be?
Yeah. So one of the great things about that we feel like about our system is it is equity based. Like all bias is taken out of it when we're assessing, and having being able to use the competencies in a way that Otus can track allows us to look at things from equity purposes, from whether it's accommodations or just in any individual student's circumstances.
Sure.
That our system allows us to, just for a little example, I noticed that I could tag for you on an assessment 3 competencies, but for somebody else who was absent for a week because of COVID, only 2 because they didn't work on that skill as much. Those little types of things actually help the equity process overall for a student getting a fair experience as a student in a class with grades and everything else.
Absolutely. It's so interesting how you're using the same process but differentiating it to support, those instances where maybe a student is absent or.
Yeah, and I would say that's something that I don't think we necessarily anticipated, but Otus opened that up for us, actually, is being able to realize that for any assessment, you can select any number of students or a whole class, however you want to do it. It's really been helpful. Like I guess I didn't think about that when we were doing, like I knew that could be part of the system, but again, the way Otus services us at NEIA is we can do that whenever we need to, which is awesome. It just helps with the whole clarity purposes for students and in terms of like the equity that we're talking about.
Sure. Have teachers noticed an impact on how they communicate progress using the system and kind of standardizing the process?
Yeah, so we're really lucky as a new school is that every teacher in our school uses the system.
Okay.
So every teacher uses our competency system, uses Otus to input all of it. So again, like a lot of schools who would like to change their assessment practices, that's often a long haul. We were able to start with it this way, but I would say that teachers definitely see the major benefit of how that you can use that to improve student learning and have conversations with students for just the clarity of what they're actually learning and doing.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we are chatting right on the precipice of a new school year. What are you all focused on this year at New England Innovation Academy?
So one thing that Otis is going to help us with is sort of tracking the data of how many competencies is equitable actually across the school for a fair grade. Okay. When it all comes down to it. So one of the things I just used Otus data analytics to do was see how many competencies were assessed in which subject areas, how many times, all those types of things, and being able to take that data then and use it to inform going into this year. This is the target of how many competencies you should be using in general so that a student can really have a fair look at or end up in a fair grade based on the trajectory of the year, because we do not assess by or we don't categorize grades by a semester or a quarter or anything like that. It's a year trajectory.
Okay. So
we believe in that process too as part of our system. It takes the whole year to sort of really show somebody their picture, but it's important that teachers have the same pool of essentially competencies that they're using to assess so that, one teacher's not only assessing, 6 competencies and another teacher's using 15. So going into the year, that's one of our big goals is just basically, I use the word calibrating all the time when I talk about our system, and Otus helps us do that.
Do you find that other schools in the area are trying to learn from you all? I feel like you are employing what is arguably best practice for students across the board.
Well, we're trying to broaden out what it is we're doing and sharing that as much as possible. Yeah. So we have a great marketing team at NEIA. I did the Otus webinar last year. I did another webinar about how we do competencies. So the more we can spread it and be able to share what it is we're doing and learn from other people. So we have a conference. The OASIS National Conference is being hosted at NEIA this year, and I'm presenting on our competency system where I'll be repping Otus there as well.
Lovely.
For how we're able to use it. So just spreading the news of how we do it. And, like I did on the Otus webinar, I think Otus is an amazing system to be able to help an assessment system that we think is the best, showcase it and use it.
Yeah, it's so interesting because a lot of what you're saying is, you all have systems in place to support student learning, and Otus is just the tool. Yeah. But that's just what's so important about education technology is that your tool doesn't become your goal.
Right.
Your goal is your students. It sounds like that nicely
And I would
fits.
say the biggest thing about Otus, the best customer service I've ever had in any work, as a customer, whatever it is, being able to use a chat function and people get back to you within 5 or 10 minutes. With Jess, our rep, I can email her at any time. She gets back to me quickly. It's really literally the best customer service of anything I've ever had. And so again, back as a tool, we're never bogged down by something that we are struggling with in-house, because I'll be like, I'll just chat with Otus right now, or you can just go chat with Otus right now. And the turnaround on the support is literally unbelievable.
Well, we love to hear that. So thank you for the shout out. If an administrator in the area or nationally was considering Otus, do you have any advice to them for either getting started or with the implementation, since you're at this point over a year in?
Yeah, I would say that I would encourage it, because anybody will be surprised at how personalized Otus will make it for your school or your district. like I said, we have a very specific thing we wanted to do. And when we reached out to a bunch of different programs and just they couldn't do it or wouldn't do it or all those things. And I was like, yeah, we can probably do that. And we sat down and worked through all the things from our, different point values and averages and how we were measuring things and what competencies we wanted in there and how we wanted them in there. And Otus has handled every single one of them. So I think that's the biggest thing. Like whatever your district or school is doing, and you might think that you have to fit yourself into a box, like Otus actually fits the box around you. That's what I would say.
That's great advice. And grading is not one size fits all, right? So you definitely need customizations. And
definitely. Are
you finding that you all are shifting anything as you move from year to year and look at the data, or are you all pretty set in how you're utilizing the program as you move forward?
So like I said, we're in like calibration and analysis mode as we go. And so using everything that we use Otus for is all part of the fabric of us analyzing and iterating each year, or actually each week. Like if we need to change something, we can change it, and Otus will change it for us right there and then, which is pretty awesome. Yeah,
that's a huge piece, just being able to adapt as you see what's happening and respond to that data.
Yeah, and I think most LMSs, that's not as easy. Like I feel like for like some of the ones we wanted to use, they just couldn't. They didn't have the mechanism in place to be malleable or flexible to what we needed, and Otus being able to do that, and with like a lot of what I think is great, and this is also what I would say to people who are interested in Otus, is that there are just many different facets of the program that not only will they adjust for you, but you can adjust to utilize the many different aspects of Otus. So that's great.
Well, fantastic. We're very excited to see you start the new year and follow your progress as you are supporting students. So thank you for being here with us, sharing more of your story, and just being such a great partner.
Yeah, thanks.
We really appreciate it.
We love Otus. Big fan.
Love to hear that.